Welcome to Screen and Streams, where I talk about all things TV and film. My name's Kay, the person behind the YouTube channel, The Purple Teapot. And today I'm joined by Lexi, host of Film Study and All American Universe podcasts. So, welcome. Would you like to tell everybody a bit about yourself and your podcast and where to find you?
Yeah, and I totally should have anticipated this
Oh, sorry, I
introduction,
didn't
but I
tell you, but
didn't.
yeah.
No, no, it's no worries, and it's so funny that it's just I haven't done it in a while,
Yeah.
so bear with me. Yeah, my name is Lexi. I have a podcast primarily about the All American universe. I write and I act, and so I love to dig deep into like the storylines and the acting choices and yeah, what's going on in that world and the writing and all the things that go into like being a show and telling a story. So that's what we talk about on film study. And, who knows, maybe it'll expand in the future to
Mm-hmm.
cover more shows and movies.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this podcast when I invited you that this is my redemption from last year when we did that recording and I absolutely hated the audio. Um this is my
Well, I hope it's
redemption.
better. I'm in a room that has more stuff in it, but it
Mhm.
historically has been very echoey, so I hope it's not echoey on your end.
No, it sounds great. It sounds great. I
Okay,
feel like
cool.
it sounded great when we did the recording last year. It sounded great, but then once I had got into post production, I was like, "Oh my days, this sounds so bad." And I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was you. I don't know if it was the platform that we chose. But this is
Right.
the redemption. This is the redemption.
This is redemption. This is
Yeah.
redemption.
Okay. So last week I started with an icebreaker where basically the question I ask a question and the question is if there was a storyline from film or TV that you could change, how would you change it? What would the storyline be that you would change and how would you change it? So like last week, I chose Billy Baker's death because I just feel like it could have just been orchestrated better. Just it was like a moment, like
I agree.
yeah,
I
the
agree, and
Titanic.
I'm not gonna take that from you. So I'll. Do you want me to do all? I can do All American
You can
or
do
Homecoming,
any
or I can do
show,
something any show.
any
I don't
show.
know why this popped into my head, but I've been watching. I'm obsessed with women-led stories
Mhm.
and things that dig into like women friendships and things like that. Because in Reese Witherspoon's voice, like women's stories matter. They just matter. So, but I watched this show during the pandemic called Mrs. America, and it's a limited series, and it's essentially about like the height of the women's movement in like the 70s. And they explored just like different women across the spectrum who were either like on the side of the women's movement or like not on the side of the women's movement. And like the equal rights amendment,
Mhm.
and then like within those two sort of factions and sides, the different ways that they each fell on the spectrum of their own side. So there was like they obviously were talking about like historical, it's very like historical fiction, sort of a fictionalized version of real events.
Mhm.
And there were two women, specifically women characters. One was Gloria Steinem, who was played by Rose Byrne, and another one was Betty something, and I
I couldn't
unfortunately like
help you if I wanted.
I know. Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
like it ends with an S, but that's not important.
Mhm.
Anyway, it was a very good look at like when a essentially like mentorship and leadership and like out with the old, in with the new. Like Gloria Steinem was like the hot sort of new thing, and she was just like she put almost like a pretty face to the movement.
Mhm.
And Betty was just like one of the originators of like fighting for women's rights, and so it's like Betty sort of felt slighted by her. And anyway, the thing that I would change is that they sort of touched on that tension between the two of them, but I
Mhm.
would have really liked to see just like an episode where that tension between the two of them was explored. Because
Mhm.
I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. So I've googled it, and is it Betty Friedan?
Yes,
Free
Betty
Friedan,
Friedan.
Friedan. Okay. So.
And so yeah, so Betty Friedan was like one of the, we'll say like founders, right, or like starters of the movement.
Mhm.
And by the time Gloria Steinem came along, she was, at least in this fictionalized version of the show, uh, just not as relevant as she was. And I think that we always get to see that sort of dynamic play out between men, right? Like
Mhm.
the quote unquote has been or whatever, and we
Yeah.
don't always get to explore that with women, like from the perspective of women only talking about women. And I just think that's
Yeah.
interesting, and I would have loved and still, obviously, you can tell I'm passionate about it. I haven't watched the show in ages,
Mhm.
but that is one storyline that I'm like, I want to see that on my screen.
Yeah. ASAP. Maybe then
Yes.
maybe one day you can write that story.
Uh, Here's hoping.
Yeah. Um so I've thought of mine this week, and it's because I talked about Amsterdam last week. I really thought about what I would change, and you already know about my thoughts on New Amsterdam and everything that went down.
Oh my gosh, that's another one. Oh yes.
Yeah. So I was thinking, how would this storyline be better? I was thinking about the whole story. In season 3, there was a moment where Max's wife who died, her parents filed wanted custody of his daughter because it was COVID, and they had been looking after this child for months. And when he got her back, when he got her back, he was barely around anyway. And I was thinking about how um if they had custody of this kid, if somehow the judge was like, yes, you can have it, that would have been a great way to explain Helen's, if everything happened like Helen going to London, it would have been a great way to explain why Max was going back to America for so long. And then it would have been, once Afima was like, "Oh, I want to leave," it would have, if I feel like that would have been a good storyline. Like they could have been like, "Oh, she." They could have had callbacks to her, and it would have been a reason, an actual reason that made sense for him to stay in America. That
Mm,
in my head,
yeah,
that would have just been better, and a better exit for Freema as well. Because I always,
that's entirely fair.
yeah, just long distance. Because they never explained really why she left. It was, I just don't want to be with you no more. But there was no reasoning. Like after 4 seasons, this woman has been pining after this man, and they didn't give a reason. And then they spent the rest of the season just making her to be the villain. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, see, gonna talk about the behind the scenes dynamics of that too.
Mhm.
In the context of like show writing world, is that they knew Prima was leaving, I think, 2 seasons, and they actually got, or
Mhm.
they thought that she was going to leave a season earlier than she ended up leaving. And so they had 2 seasons, a 2 season head start to sort of plan out this arc, right, for her and how she leaves. And as much as we didn't some of us, right, didn't appreciate how Billy died, it was at least thought out and like executed
Yeah.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
um as far as
We got our
what
goodbye,
did right, we got our goodbye. They spent a lot of
his
time on it.
birthday, like.
Yeah, and this had been in motion since last season. Like she spent a
Mhm.
whole season like planning out this sort of death arc and what that would look like.
Yeah.
In K. And I think
Mhm.
and I, let me be honest, I have never talked to the showrunners of New Amsterdam. I was not like an avid watcher of the show,
Mhm.
but from what I can tell, they did have this sort of 2 season head start to like planning out this arc.
Yeah.
And what I think impacted fans the most, if I can say what I like observed,
Mhm.
is that it completely disregarded, not even like people say like disregarded character growth, like this character isn't growing. It wasn't even about growth at that point. Disregarded the heart of the character, like the very
Yes.
basis of the character
Mhm. Of both
of
characters, of
Helen.
Max and Helen. It,
Max and Helen, but I think Helen especially because she was such a caring person. Like part of
yeah.
their tension as a couple was because she cared
Mhm.
so much as a human being, right? And that
Yeah.
was something that he thought at first. She there's the
Yeah. That
pilot
was from
episode,
episode
right? Is
1.
that
Yeah.
that was literally episode one? Is that he very quickly realized that just because she had shown her love for the hospital in a different in a different way didn't mean that she didn't love helping people, and this was her
Mhm.
way of like funding the hospital to get help. Like that was episode one pilot.
Yeah.
And so to take that, they finally get together after all this tension, after her being a bit of a doormat in their relationship
Yes.
thus far, even though it hadn't turned romantic quite yet.
Mhm.
Then it was like a complete not even like a 180. It was like, who is this character that it's just
Yeah.
like nothing, no explanation. And I almost feel like Helen is a bit of an over explainer at times to Max. So it
Yeah.
literally didn't
It was
didn't make
it
sense
didn't make sense. It was like
in
it
any
felt
sort of
like
way.
I remember when season 4 had come out. Me and my friends were like, they had got new people in the writers' room, and it was made clear that there was new people in the writers' room, and it didn't feel like they had watched the show before or read previous scripts or anything. And there was no. I said this last week. There was no
Continuity.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was very clear. It seemed like a different character, as he said, and
And
um,
then I think it was like also like the it almost felt like a was like campaign against her during
yes.
the end of the show, because then it
Mhm.
was like once the end of the show came out, the showrunner, or like I don't know, the head writers, one of the top writers was like, you know, actually if you look back, like their relationship has always been kind of toxic. Da, da, da. And it was like,
uh,
oh, I don't know. I think that
Yeah, he was
that
trying
is
to cover
one thing.
himself.
That's one thing. I'm not going to talk about which show, but there is a very popular sort of like YA show and
Mhm.
showrunner who I think like they basically came out and said at one point like a big casting dynamic had changed, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And anyway, they came out and said like this was our plan from the very beginning, and this was like about a relationship. And I
Mhm.
was like, was it the plan from the very beginning? Or did
Yeah.
the like sort of off screen dynamics impact the actual decision?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
That's
let's not be ridiculous here. Like, we know how casting works, we know how show you can tell pretty much unless something is like wildly successful and a runaway hit, that like these are the sorts of dynamics that are going to play out. And I
yeah.
just don't like when showrunners insult the intelligence of the audience.
Mhm. It's like they're trying to cover themselves. They know that
Yeah, they're like,
it's
"Oh,
like
I was my genius the whole time," and it's like,
yeah.
something happened off
The
screen, and you sort of had to
yeah.
scramble, and like
The
that's. But and it's nice that we got the story, and like
mhm.
some people are happy, some people aren't, but like let's
Yeah.
not just say this was the plan from the beginning.
Yeah. I was thinking about New Amsterdam, the showrunner. Um, Twice, I think, had said he blamed his daughter on the story. He at the ending of New Amsterdam, he blamed his daughter on giving him the ideas for the last episodes of season 3 and season 5. I think twice he did it, and I was like, so you're just gonna throw your daughter under the bus? Why would you listen? The first thing was, it was just like, why would you listen to your daughter in the first place? Your daughter's like 12, 13, and it was. It feels like sometimes that these showrunners want to cover their ass. So when they have like an explanation instead of being like something happened or
Right.
we were wrong here. But
I completely agree. I will say that like every writer is getting inspiration from their personal life.
yeah, no,
Um,
I understand that.
but with that being said, to that point, you can't be being like seeing all of the vitriol that like a story is getting and being like, well, actually, that was my mom gave me that. She was just like she told me exactly what to like. That's stupid.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
that's it's ridiculous. Um, so I have some talking points. The All American Universe. Let's talk about it.
okay.
What? Okay, so for the flagship show All American, what are you most excited? What are you most excited to see this coming season that you think is going to happen? Like,
I feel like I am the most unprepared to answer this question because I've not been thinking about this show. I mean, obviously, e- I'm a very big Jordan and Layla fan. I
hmm
I, I love them. I love where the storyline is going. Like you know, me and my friend like wrote a whole thing about them before this even happened on screen. So that's always
love
going to
that.
have like that specific storyline is always going to have a special place um in my heart, right? And in my
hmm
mind. So I'm very excited to see that. I think the one dynamic that I'm like elated to be explored, and I hope that they explore it, is you know the women in Jordan's life,
hmm
aside from Layla, are also the women in Layla's life, right? Like Liv and Liv and Laura, because
hmm
her mother passed away at a very young age, and then there is for Jordan, obviously his father isn't there anymore, and he has Spencer. But you're thinking about like family dynamics and people that have known you your whole life, etc.
hmm
And it's like their core people, their family, um is the same in a really weird way. So it's like how
when
are Laura and Olivia going to react to this news? And I think that's really
Mhm.
what I'm excited about. I also this might make these be unpopular. I know it is not the most popular opinion for sure. I get feedback on this or have in the past. I still want to see Olivia have I don't even know if come into her own is the word, but I think like take charge in a way that she hasn't yet. I think that
Mhm.
whenever she does take charge and come into her own, we always see a lot of guilt around that, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of her thinking of other people and how that will impact them, and like all of that is really good to see. But I don't I don't like, for instance, I don't want to see her write an article and then spend 20 episodes apologizing to all of the men in her life about like the effects of the
mhm.
article. Like I have no interest in seeing that story
Mhm.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
I
bit
guess
mad.
being very transparent since it's been off for a while, so I'm like, let it fly. But yeah, to be transparent, like I don't want to see her have to write, and really, like obviously, I don't want an article to be. I don't want her to have to do an article that puts her at odds with a lot of people, like it had in this
mhm.
past season. But also, if that happens to be the case in the future, I'm just so tired of seeing
Yeah.
her have to explain herself, having to like defend herself,
She's been
uh
defending herself
because
since she started
right,
the podcast.
right, and it's
Like.
like it's been aside from a couple episodes here and there, it's been like nonstop Olivia apologizing since season one,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just getting
I need a season of people
tired.
apologizing to her.
I am apologizing to her, right, and the people in it. Well, I'm gonna stop there. Before I
He's
get
like,
really
oh,
unpopular.
you have to, I have to censor yourself sometimes. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
One thing I've learned in podcast, you do have to censor yourself.
yeah. I should censor myself more, but I feel like actually I've gone on a journey of censoring myself. I think in 2020 when I started YouTube and that I was very unhinged, and now I'm still unhinged, but a lot less unhinged. I have my
Yeah, I think that
moments of
you're
controversy,
aware.
but yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's like people don't think about this as I don't think in the way that we think about it as like podcasters, right? But we're still
Mhm.
making content for people, and we still do want people to enjoy the content and hear differing perspectives and all of that.
Mhm.
And also there's a level of self-care that we have to like engage in when we're
Yeah.
doing this, because we, you know, can quickly find out how people react to things. So it's like I don't even
Yes.
want to go down that road.
Yeah, I think there was a moment in 2021 where I was like, "Oh my days, it was really bad," and I was like, "Okay, maybe I need to calm down." And since then, I have calmed down. I still have my
Yeah.
moments, as I said, but
Right, right.
yeah,
Just be more, we get more strategic about when and where and how we
yeah.
use those
Like
moments.
last week, I cut out a couple of things. Like I had gone on a rant about the same people from 2021, and I was like, you know what? I need to protect my peace and just cut that out. So
Right, right.
yeah.
With that being said, now I feel like I have to do a disclaimer. New Amsterdam showrunners and writers, I do respect what you do, but you have to
Oh,
admit that there is a lot of public fallback. But if we ever
yeah,
work together in the future, it
yeah.
will likely be a different experience.
I don't think you're going. I don't think you're going to get to work with them. They've they banished the showrunner to an office somewhere in LA. I think you'll be
Oh
fine.
wow,
Maybe you'll see
wow.
him, but
Okay,
maybe you won't get to.
I don't
He'll
know.
probably be
Hollywood
working in your
very
writer's room.
Hollywood is big, and the writers are like even smaller.
Yeah. Um. Oh, I have a question because I've seen you I've seen you talk about this a bit. I think you talked about it. I think when I was on the podcast, you mentioned it slightly for one brief second because it wasn't really because we talk about All American. It's about homecoming. Can
Mhm.
you please explain to me the thought process between Simone and Cam?
I don't know where I thought you were going with that, but
No, 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 no,
now
no.
that you've brought it up, I'm enthusiastic and passionate
Yeah,
about it
please
now.
tell me the passion. Maybe I can
I
be
am
passionate.
a
No,
s-
I'm not
let
going to
me
be.
let me start with this. Let me start with this. I am a
Okay.
Simone and Damon truther.
Mhm.
Um, I ship them. They are my number one show. I think that like that's the foundation of the show. Kind of like I said
Yeah.
in the beginning, like it's very clear that this is what the show is built around, and I think I think I've said this as well before, but I don't think that Homecoming works without Simone and Damon at
No.
least being very, very in each other's spaces. Like I think that the episodes where they are in each other's space are more impactful than the ones that aren't than when they aren't. So with that being said, I could have a little fun. Um, Obviously I'm not Simone and Lando, right? I don't think this
um.
is really that into him.
Yeah,
In
but
my
he's
own
into her, and
humble opinion. He
that's
is a
why I'm
he's
here. That's why I'm here for it. She deserves that.
and
Cause
hey, we love a good little spicy drama romantic twist.
exactly, I think he
He is
challenged
he is
Damon a
very much
bit.
definitely did challenge Damon.
Cause
I
he
think he's
didn't
an
get that
interesting
with Jordan.
character.
Damon didn't get that with Jordan.
No, but I do think like I think it from a holistic perspective, and like every time I look, and she is the protagonist, so like looking
Mhm.
through her eyes, I'm like I don't know if you really want that. But
Mhm.
I think with Simone and Cam, it's just unexpected enough that I think the the potential to explore that is there. Now, I was saying that in like a pre-strike world, you know,
Mhm.
this wasn't like a pre CW Next Star sort of world, but it's also just like being keeping in mind like the changing landscape of the industry
Mhm.
and specifically for the network that they're on. Like that has changed tremendously. And so the episode order has changed, the casting, like,
Yeah.
the casting like standings and statuses of folks have changed. So it's like all of these shifting dynamics impact that. And I don't think that they'll have enough time to explore that in the way that it could have been explored, like pre
Yeah.
some of this stuff happening. Um, and so I don't think it's going to happen as much as I did sort of when I said it. But I think if they had the time, again, it's just sort of unsuspecting enough that I think exploring it works. I think that just the fact that they're the two characters from the flagship show and they
Mhm.
didn't have much interaction on that show makes it interesting. I think the fact that they have a very like sort of bickering relationship always makes, oh, for a little bit of a more spicy dynamic, but they've never
Mhm.
been. Here's the thing. I'm really a fan when they show like nice relationships and relationships that breed out of friendship. And
Mhm.
so they aren't mean to each other, right? And like that's what I love is I love a good bicker session as long as it's not like you're constantly rooted in like being mean and rude to each other. And like
Mhm.
so for instance, I don't know why this is the example that's popping into my head, but Sam and Freddie, like I never sort of was a fan of that relationship because it was rooted in like bullying.
Yeah, I
And that's
understand
just
that.
not something
I
that
was I
appeals
used to
to me.
like them, but then didn't, and then did. It was
It was
yeah.
very up and down for you.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I did think that Cardi should have always been his end game, and I was
Mm.
when I was younger, I used to be confused. Like they had that one kiss, and then they would just remain friends for the rest of the season, except for was it the last episode they had a little moment? But I'm glad
Do you mean
look,
Carly and Freddie or
yeah, Carly and
Sam and
Freddie,
Freddie?
Carly
Oh,
and
right,
Freddie,
yeah. The
they were
in the yeah, part of the reason the dating didn't last long is because of Sam, right? And Sam's
yeah.
meddling, but it
Mhm.
but I think the basis, even apart from Carly and Freddie, the basis of that Sam Freddie thing, I could never root for it myself because I was just
Mhm.
like, she's rude to him all of the time, and he's
Yeah,
rude to her, right? And she like literally like physically
it was
beats up on him. And
hatred.
so I was just
Yeah,
never, yeah, I was never a fan of that. But I think like a
I
good
understand.
bickering is like, I love a good bickering as long as
Mhm.
it's not like that's not all that you are. And I think
Yeah.
that like, and that's not like the basis of who you are. And I feel like that is true for Cam and Simone is that they like
Mhm.
have their moments of bickering, but they also have like, it's not rooted in meanness and there's like a deep support and like respect there.
Mhm. So in this world where Cam and Keisha, I mean, not sorry, when Cam and Simone are this world before before the Nexus and CW thing. Um, where's Keisha in all this? I want to ask.
Hopefully not with Cam. Anyway, I mean, I'm just speaking of going back to that, like what I like to see in sort of the TV relationships that I root for.
Mhm.
Keisha is
She's mean, isn't she?
incredibly rude. She's
Yeah.
incredibly rude to Cam.
Yeah.
That takes a lot for me to say because again, I love women. Like I root for I root for women's faults. I root for women's wrongs. But
Same.
like Keisha a little too wrong for me. Like I'm so and I hate that like that is the case.
Yeah.
But it is very rare when this is the case. But I'm just like, wow, I like the guy in this relationship more than I
Mhm.
like the girl.
I haven't taken Keisha seriously since
Clearly,
that
I'm a
moment where
very strong
since the
feminist.
catwalk.
Like, oh, you're right. Right. Don't even get that. But yeah, I just think that she's. Let me say this. I think that they need to return, please, for even if these are like, even if they get like another season beyond this,
Mhm.
for however long that they have this show, please, I beg, return to the Keisha that we met in the pilot.
Yeah, Keisha needs to be
Return to the
single.
Keisha that we met, truly, right? Return to the Keisha that we met in the first like two,
Hmm.
3 episodes
The one who
of
made.
the first season.
Oh, I was gonna say she needs to be the Keisha who made um who who made Olivia make her move. But yeah, the
I know,
fun
but I
Keisha.
totally like I agree. Like she's not fun anymore. Like she was supposed to be the
Hmm.
party.
I think
She
it's
was
meant to be
supposed to
like.
be she was supposed to be the, let's be real, like the, the stereotypical it girl, right? Like that's
Hmm.
who she was supposed to
She's
be
meant to be the
for
Layla
this
of the show.
show. It's not like, not even because she's so different from Layla's character, but
Yeah,
it's
I
like
know, but
she, to that point, like, yeah, she's supposed to sort of like spice things up, and
hmm
she hasn't. And it's like, and I think that's actually a like ingredient that they're almost missing. Like, I feel like the
yeah, I
guy
think
and
that.
the male characters that they introduce, the male characters spice things up a lot, but like
Hmm.
what they're getting out of the folks that they've introduced it on like the female side of it, the women's side of it,
Hmm.
there's really not that like person that just adds spice. And the crazy thing is she has
Hmm.
moments and her one-liners are killer, so it's like why not lean into what
Yeah,
works for her? But yeah, I don't understand sort of why that is. I think
they're gonna
Gabby
say
is
Dr.
amazing,
Pace.
but she's like nice,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
Gabby is really nice, and she's like sort of that support. And so we do
Hmm.
need that girl that's like just a little bit like she needs to be a bit of a Brooke Davis, right?
Don't know what show that is on because I'm
Oh,
British.
One Tree Hill. Sorry, that was a One
Okay.
Tree Hill reference.
I'm going to blame the fact that I'm British and literally One Tree Hill. Okay, I think One Tree Hill was on TV when I was younger, but I wasn't watching it, and
Got it.
then it came off TV, came off streaming service here, and when All American came to England, One Tree Hill and all those shows came to ITVX, and so I haven't got to there. I think it's on my list, but very low on my list
I
because
think that
there's
you'll
lots of
enjoy it if you
seasons.
watch it.
It will be on my.
For the
It's on
folks
my
who
list.
know, B.
Maybe
Davis. She needs to
maybe
be
this
the reincarnation of Brooke Davis.
maybe this Christmas or when I'm at uni and I have some time to watch TV because I was told, you know what, you got to watch a load of TV, so it should be on my list. If in the perfect world, season 6 of All Americans comes out in, is it February? And how would
I think
you
even further than
uh,
that, I think it's like
further than
May.
that, April, May? Oh, have
Yeah.
mercy. Um, how would you? One more days. The words will. Okay, so Spencer and Olivia. How would you? What in the perfect
Please don't
world?
say Spencer and Olivia, please.
Why not? Okay, is it too messy? I was just like in a
No,
perfect
no, no.
world
Ask
when
the question. That's
when
my own sort
yeah
of,
when
ask the
Olivia
question. We're
comes
gonna be brave today.
yeah when Olivia comes back from London, like how do you feel? Do you feel like their dynamic is going to change? Because I feel like you know how you said earlier that she needs her own little like
Hmm.
moment where she's just here for herself and only for herself. I feel like she's going to go to London, discover herself, and the become Olivia. And I feel like even though NK said that did she say? I'm sure she said in the interview that there's not going to be any breakups or anything like that or any tension.
Hmm.
Well, less tension between her and Spencer. Like,
Yeah,
what do you think is
I
going to
don't
happen?
anticipate them having any tension because they spent the last season sort of having nothing but that.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm okay with that. Like I am very okay with that. I think what I would love to see, it's funny that you started out with like when she returns from London, because what I would love to see is like
her in London.
him, yeah, him go and visit her, like gather up the
Mhm.
coins, like spend real time together, because they
Mhm.
haven't been really together, and I think even when they were dating, it was such a like straight to even sort of past the honeymoon stage, I feel like, but it was straight to like we're a unit. And so and you think in the realm of the show, at least where we ended last season, they're just sort of past like the first semester of their college year, and they've only known each other uh
For like 2 years.
since their junior year of high school.
Mhm.
And like the second half of their junior year of high school, so that's really not a lot of time. That's not like uh that's not even 3 years, or maybe it's just at 3 years at that point. So I really want like Spencer and Olivia have an understanding of each other, but I really want them to get to know each other and
Mhm.
not put pressure on themselves
Yeah.
uh to be a defined unit right away. Like I
Yeah.
want, and I think that's what hurt them in their first go round of their relationship, is that they automatically wanted to be a unit before sort of deeply getting to know the
Mhm.
small stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
they had a whole episode of in the ending of 4, right, about that, where he was just like, oh, we need to start with the basics. So I do actually think that's where they need to sort of pick back up where they left off, and like start with
Mhm.
the basics of who they are, and like recognize who each other is as individuals, and then sort of go from there to becoming a unit, which is where they sort of naturally want to be.
Yeah. I understand that. It's like I feel like because they like lived together and that they felt like probably
Right. I
they
think that and that they
they
have an
thought that
understanding. They do
they
have an
knew each
understanding.
other.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right. But I
then they
don't think
realized
that
they
they
didn't.
did.
They
Yeah.
did 100.
Exactly.
It was like 50% there. They did know each other, but they needed that extra 50%. They need that extra 50% to they need more time basically is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Um
yeah, and that's the thing, is like another way of putting that is like they knew each other at their core,
mhm.
but the ins and outs of who
The
a
little
person
things.
is, especially when you're sort of moving at that pace and at that rate. And again, I said that like they truly were acting like a unit, right? Like
Mhm.
so many sleepovers, so many things like that, and it's like all of that is like wonderful, right? But it's
Yeah.
it's like when you move in with somebody for the first time, it's like, oh, are
Yeah.
they, do they have the toilet paper? Like, is it over or under? Like
Yeah.
those things about like living with a person and being with a person, they I don't think that they were prepared for right off the bat.
No. No. Yeah. So, outside of All American, I know you did. I think when you talked about Mrs. American,
Hmm.
Mrs. America at the beginning, that was a bit of a
Yeah.
recommendation. I wrote that down to probably put in the show notes. I like to put like a link to something. Do you have any recommendations for any show that you think that
So many. So
everybody should be
many
watching? What's the
that everybody should be
one?
watching.
Yeah, what's the one show that everyone should be watching?
Oh, that is so tough. See, I had a show in mind.
Hmm.
Um, and I really would love to say that this is a show that everybody should be watching, but I know for sure that it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I really want to say it, but I'm not going to, because it's not everybody's cup of tea. Um, but so I'll say this one instead. The You know what? Scratch that. I was gonna say two like deeply interesting shows, but I'm gonna hop on the popular train a little bit here and say
Yeah, if you
Suits.
want. Oh,
I think that
okay.
Suits is really a show for any and everybody. It's so wonderfully well written. Um,
Hmm.
it's well performed, well acted,
Yeah, I haven't
and
watched
it's
it.
like just long enough, right? That like
Like five
that it keeps
seasons.
going. Like it doesn't
Hmm.
end right away, and it's an hour long drama. So yeah, it has like really strong characters. I think really strong like both male and female characters, and so it's yeah,
Hmm.
there's something for everybody in it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my recommendation because haven't really thought of one. Um, while I think I can still talk, I was gonna say that for Suits, I didn't know what Suits was until Meghan Markle and Harry started dating. I was like,
I
oh.
will cook. You know what? I do think that I had like back when I had cable that I had heard like I was aware that the show existed, but it was
Mhm.
like USA as a that's the channel that I came on.
Mhm.
USA as a channel just like wasn't a channel that I watched very
Mhm.
often because it was like that sort of type of what's called like a procedural drama. And so I wasn't like that's not usually my style of what I go and look for to watch. Um and so I just didn't like I knew of it, but did never watched it actually until to your point, like it was announced that they were dating, and I was just like, well, now I gotta go see what she's in, and then
Mhm.
it was like I watched it before they got married and got pretty far, but then for some reason like fell off, even though it's a great show. And then
Mhm.
actually, like recently, it's had a resurgence with the strike because there hasn't been a lot of content out. And I like
Yeah.
started watching back through, and I'm like, I don't know why I ever stopped watching. But again, it's like one of those things where you could watch, like you can watch 2 seasons in a year, and then like take a pause, and then come back and watch like another 2 seasons, and still have more to watch. And so I think it's just one of those things where you can pace yourself and then like enjoy it, binge it or not. Yeah, it's really whatever however you consume television or stories, like I think that's a good show.
Yeah. It's definite. I think that that was put on my list after, but it's under. It's wherever One Tree Hill is. Suits is nearby. Um,
Mm.
really, really struggling with my recommendation. Because I feel like this week I just started my new job, so I'm just thinking I have not watched any TV other than Found. I haven't watched any TV.
I was gonna say
That wasn't reality.
is Founder.
Found. I recommended Found last week, but
Oh.
I could recommend it again
You could recommend again. You could recommend again.
this week's
Hey.
episode was really good.
Mm.
It had me thinking. You know the dynamic between Gabby and Sir and that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very I
It's very
every
nuanced and intricate. I hear.
yeah, very, and watching it I'm just thinking, how did he get here? Like, had because we're 7 episodes in, and this isn't really a spoiler, but we haven't been told his backstory. And every
Mm.
time I watch this episode, it's like I need to know his backstory. He's a sick in the head, but I need to still know his backstory because I don't understand why he
Is
everything
the way that
that's
he is.
yeah, why is he the
Yeah.
way that he is? Like it feels like maybe I don't know if you, I don't wait, nah, I won't. That's too
I'm
that
very early on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I will say, I think it's a show that makes you think, and even the thought of like, oh, like I want to know this person's backstory. Is that saying something about me that I want to like be in the mind of a spoiler alert, like a serial killer? Like that's the
Mhm.
like, but really, it's just like, oh, why is it that I want to know the context behind a serial? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's that in of itself is like very interesting.
Yeah. So, because there's lots of people who like ship Gabby and Sir, and I'm like,
I'm
I'm
sure there are.
I'm on the
This
fence.
media
I
is
was
sick. And that's what I'm saying. It's like very interesting. Just
yeah, like
it
I
makes
was
you
like,
question a lot of things.
oh, but then and then that she's got the chemistry with like Trent. I know you watched the first episode, so you saw that, and
Hmm.
it's just like morally, I just can't do it. I just can't. But at the same time, I
Yeah.
still do want to know why he is the way that he is because
See,
that's
now
what.
I'm like, I need to like have this
Yeah,
today that I need to catch up on the show.
yeah, you do need to catch up because
After this, I'm literally going to watch the
yeah,
episode.
they do such a great job of just explaining, like very slowly, but in the best way, explaining like each of Gabby's team, like why they are the way that they are,
Listen,
and
that
it's
is honestly, if there was any selling point for the show that like I could advertise, it was
it
at
would.
the very end of the pilot, right? When
Hmm.
her team goes home and they just drop like little nuggets
Yeah.
about her team, and you start to see why they do what they do and why they are who they are. And it's
Hmm.
just the most interesting thing.
Is NK the showrunner for this, or is she just the
I
creator?
think she's co-showrunner. I think she's co-showrunner. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that someone else might be handling it because she has a lot clearly, right? A lot
Yeah,
going on.
a lot.
So I don't think she's like full control of it. But yeah, she's still
Mm-hmm.
she's
It's
still
just
top.
I was like, this is series is one of the best series that I've watched in a very long time for the
Hmm.
character, just explaining each character, because I feel like sometimes a lot of times with certain shows they just, because everything's so like, oh, we've only got 12 episodes, they decide that they're not going to give certain characters backstory, and this show does that, and it's just like,
Listen, win, lose, or draw. That is a hallmark of Inkechi
is that, wait,
Okoro Carol. No, I'm saying
yeah,
that's one of Nkechi's hallmarks is that she go tell you
yeah,
the backstory behind some people. Like no
yeah,
matter if you want it or not, like she's going to tell you. But I think that
yeah.
like that's what makes her unique as a storyteller. Like that's her calling card is that she's going to give. I mean, to switch it back to All American, like I people at this point, if you've listened to my podcast, know my thoughts on characters like JJ, right? Like why are we spending time?
Mhm.
Um, exploring this when we could be focusing on some of the main characters, but she cares deeply about like the
Like each
world of
character.
her show.
Mhm.
Exactly, the world of her show, and that part of that is exploring different characters in depth.
Yeah. It's great until you get to JJ. But yeah.
Right. um and
Yeah.
some people love it. Listen, like we have that opinion, but I know people that love JJ and are
I
like, we
bet
need to
there is.
focus more
No,
on JJ, and I'm like, oh,
I like JJ until he said what he said about Layla.
yeah,
He That was the point where
it's a
I was
whole
like,
nother
okay,
conversation.
yeah, it is a whole other conversation. Um yeah, so Found is going to be my recommendation again. I feel like I'm sure. I like to recommend. I'm gonna recommend a comedy as well. I don't think I said this last week. I recommended another comedy. Dreaming While Black. It's a it's a Black British sitcom.
Oh,
Great show. I would recommend that to anybody listening. I would recommend that to you, Lexi, if you want to watch something Black and
oh,
British.
okay. I love that.
Um,
Can I add another recommendation?
sure. Yeah.
So what I truly wanted to say in my heart of hearts, not suits, was um it's called Lessons in Chemistry and it's based on a book.
Mhm.
Uh and it's on Apple TV Plus and it's led by Brie Larson, so she stars and produces it. And it's just a great show about the 1950s. I don't know whether there's like a theme from start to finish in
That's
like
on Apple
women in the
Plus, isn't it?
1950s to 70s. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's based on a book and it's about a woman scientist in the 1950s. But it also like it gives room to breathe and room to explore
Mhm.
like black characters, like this black family as well. And yeah, I love that. I love that because to
Yeah.
our point, right? Like something that NK does is expand the stories of who's seen as like a secondary character, and I think
Mhm.
this show also does that really, really well. And it's like it. I almost feel like people are tricked because they're like, oh, it's this like white show with this white woman lead and it's about white
Yeah.
feminism, right? And then it's like it actually goes very in depth for this like
Because
black
I thought
family as
that's what
well.
it was. It wasn't on my
Yeah, yeah,
list,
and
but I
listen,
might
and
start
those are
watching.
interesting. Like I love
Mhm.
good like messy white women, right? But like it also I love that like this because of the way that the show is set up and the book is set up, this is also giving voice for a certain audience, right? Like who's it's targeted to, right? That's like
Yeah.
and we gonna sneak in and actually make you watch this black family as well and
Mhm.
like highlight the things that is true for black
Yeah.
America. So yeah.
See, I saw that, and because it was about a cook, I honestly was just like, I was like,
See,
maybe,
so it is about cooking, but it's truly about science.
yeah. But see,
I'd just say
I
give it a
will watch
try.
the
Just watch
first
the first episode.
episode. Yeah.
Watch the first. Watch the first episode.
Yeah. I can do
But
that
let me know
now.
what your thoughts are.
So that concludes the second episode of Screen and Streams with Lexi from Film Study and All American Universe podcast. You should check out her podcast, the links below. Also, check out the first episode of this podcast with me and JD, where we talk about our previous podcasts and we talk a bit about everything, kind of, all the TV shows. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.